Chemistry and Contracts. Chapter 1 The Persecution of Blind Dates. Jong Yoon is 32 years old, a chemistry professor at a well-known domestic research institute, handsome, well-off, and has a thriving career. However, he had no interest in marriage. His parents frequently used extreme means to force him to agree to a blind date, often threatening his health, reputation, and even his life. Yoon's, this time it must go smoothly. The mother's tone was urgent. Jong Yoon rubbed his eyebrows, helplessly and indifferently. I know. He secretly decided in his heart that he wanted to find a woman who was both obedient and gentle-tempered to complete the form of marriage, and at the same time put an end to the possibility of his parents coercing him again. Chapter 2 Meet Her. The blind date location was a quiet tea house. Jong Yoon sat by the window, and when he flipped through the information, his eyes fell on the woman who walked into the tea house. At first glance, he recognized her, the girl who was absent from the re-examination last year. The ID photo on the document is so beautiful that it is still fresh in my memory, and the gentle temperament is deeply rooted in my mind. He originally did not plan to marry a student who had applied for his major, but at this moment he was attracted by her obedient and gentle temperament. Chapter 3 The First Conversation. The woman sat down, bowed slightly, and said softly, "Hello, I am the blind date partner today." Jong Yoon nodded slightly and responded flatly, "I know." During the conversation, he noticed that her attitude was extremely gentle, and her tone was not impatient, as if the disturbances of the world had nothing to do with her. He secretly assessed in his heart, if he wanted to complete the marriage contract, she was the best candidate. In the end, he decided to take the initiative to bring up the marriage. "Are you willing to consider getting married in the near future?" The woman was slightly stunned, nodded after a while, and said softly, "Yes." Chapter 4 The Contract of Marriage. Jong Yoon secretly calculated in his heart, he wants to be perfect in this marriage. The wedding is simple, and my life will be according to my arrangement in the future, and I will give you an ideal marriage experience. The woman lowered her head and smiled, did not resist, and her attitude was obedient and respectful. This is exactly what Jong Yoon wants most, not only to protect his freedom, but also to fulfill his parents' requirements. He vaguely felt in his heart that everything seemed to be under control. Chapter 5 The Urging of the Family. The news of the marriage reached their parents, and they were ecstatic. "Yoon-zi, this time I finally reassured you." The mother almost jumped. Jong Yoon only nodded lightly, but he knew in his heart that the real challenge had just begun, how to maintain form in this marriage without losing autonomy. He secretly told himself, she is an ideal candidate, but she still needs to be careful in the future. Chapter 6 Temptations Before the Wedding. On the eve of the wedding, Jong Yoon and the heroine, Shen Ruolin, sat in the corner of the tea house and discussed the details of the wedding. "What style do you like in dresses?" Jong Yoon asked. His tone was flat, but there was observation in his eyes. Shen Ruolin lowered her head and smiled slightly. "It's just simple." Jong Yoon nodded secretly in his heart. Her obedience was in line with the ideal contract marriage in his heart. However, there was a hint of curiosity in his eyes. What story was hidden behind her gentleness? Chapter 7 The Reenactment of the Blind Date. The wedding arrangement process is slow, and parents are still under constant pressure. Jong Yoon arranged for Shen Ruolin to meet with her family, and he carefully observed her reaction in every conversation. "Are you adapting to this family?" Jong Yoon asked, his tone calm, but every word was to the bone. Shen Ruolin replied in a low voice, "I will try to adapt." Her soft voice and respectful attitude made Jong Yoon secretly recognize, she is not only gentle on the outside, but also malleable on the inside. Chapter 8 Dialogue by the Lake. One evening, Jong Yoon took Shen Ruolin for a walk to the campus lake. The breeze blows on the face, the lake water sparkles, and the atmosphere is quiet and peaceful. Jong Yoon suddenly asked, "You once applied for my major, why was you absent from the re-examination at that time? Shen Ruolin lowered her head and said softly, there are some things at home that I can't attend. Zhang Yun's looked at her, and a touch of softness flashed in his eyes. I see. He realized that she was not only docile, but also knew how to restrain and endure at the right time, which made him feel good and strengthened his confidence in the marriage arrangement. Chapter 9 The First Dinner. Zhang Yun's arranged to have dinner with Shen Ruolin, and the atmosphere was quiet. Under the candlelight, her smile was as gentle as water, while he remained calm and composed as usual. Do you like it here? Zhang Yun's asked. Shen Ruolin nodded, it's very quiet and very suitable for talking about things. He secretly admired in his heart, such a personality, just right, will not challenge his control, but can also bring a sense of harmony. During dinner, Zhang Yun's carefully observed her dining habits and demeanor details, silently recording her every move in his heart. Chapter 10 Laboratory Fit. Zhang Yun's took Shen Ruolin to visit the research room and instructed her on some simple operations. She learns quickly and has a humble attitude, which surprises Zhang Yun's. He thought to himself, perhaps, she can cooperate in marriage as well. The students observed from the sidelines and whispered, the professor's new wife can get started so quickly? Shen Ruolin smiled faintly and didn't say much, just focusing on studying. Zhang Yun's looked at her, and a trace of relief welled up in his heart, she was completely in line with his ideal marriage model. Chapter 11 Mother's Interference. Mother visited frequently to bring wedding arrangements and life details. Do you like these things? The wedding must be prepared as I said. Shen Ruolin lowered her head and smiled, and replied gently, I will follow your arrangements. Zhang Yun's looked at this scene and secretly made up his mind, in this marriage, he must grasp the rhythm to reassure his mother and maintain Shen Ruolin's comfort. He began to plan, how to give her a perfect experience in the form of marriage and the reality of life. Chapter 12 The First Emotional Fluctuation. One night, when Shen Ruolin was sorting out the information, Zhang Yun's walked up to her and whispered a reminder of the precautions for operation. The two of them touched their fingers inadvertently, and Shen Ruolin's heartbeat accelerated slightly. Zhang Yun's eyes were light, and his tone was calm. Don't be nervous, you are doing a good job. She felt a little throbbing in her heart, realizing that in addition to this obedience, there seemed to be another emotion quietly sprouting. Chapter 13 The Persecution of Parents rises again. With the countdown to the wedding, the parents pressed again, Yunzi, the wedding cannot be delayed, this time it must be completed as planned. Zhang Yun's responded coldly, I know. He secretly calculated in his heart, how to protect Shen Ruolin without letting her mother interfere too deeply is the biggest challenge at present. Shen Ruolin seemed to be aware of his thoughts and said softly, anyway, I will cooperate with your arrangements. He secretly admired in his heart, she not only obeyed, but also knew how to understand his difficulties in a timely manner. Chapter 14 Silence before the wedding. On the eve of the wedding, the two took a walk by the lake, and the setting sun reflected the water, creating a peaceful atmosphere. Zhang Yun suddenly said, do you know? I didn't plan to get married to a student who had applied for me. Shen Ruolin lowered her head and smiled, I understand, but I am willing to trust you. He looked at her gentle side face, and a wave of warmth welled up in his heart. He secretly made up his mind, not only to complete the marriage form, but also to give her a gentle and ideal life. Chapter 15 The First Step of Marriage. On the wedding day, Zhang Yun's and Shen Ruolin stood at the small wedding scene, surrounded by family and a few friends. While his parents were full of expectations, Zhang Yun's remained calm and calculated the details of his future life. When the pastor asks, are you willing to spend your life hand in hand with the other person? Shen Ruolin replied softly, I do. Zhang Yun's responded in a low voice, I do. Moment they exchanged rings, Zhang Yun smiled slightly in his heart. This marriage is a contract in form, but in fact, it may be a journey beyond calculation. Chapter 16 The first day after marriage. The day after the wedding, Zhang Yun's and Shen Ruolin returned to the apartment where they lived together. Shen Ruolin quietly sorted out her luggage, her movements gentle and organized. Zhang Yun sat on the sofa, playing with a research material in his hand, his eyes occasionally swept towards her. Are you used to being here? His tone was flat, but with a hint of concern. Shen Ruolin nodded softly, fortunately, everything is quiet. Zhang Yun nodded slightly, secretly thinking in his heart, such a gentle person is the most suitable for this marriage. However, he also realized that behind the peace of formal marriage, there may be hidden emotions and thoughts that she has not revealed. Chapter 17 Tacit Understanding in the Morning Light. Early the next morning, Zhang Yun's prepared breakfast in the kitchen, while Shen Ruolin tidied up the table. The morning light shone through the window, reflecting her quiet profile. Zhang Yun's whispered, Don't be too greasy for breakfast, I have some requirements for my diet. Shen Ruolin nodded, I will pay attention. Her well-behaved and obedient made him feel slightly warm, and he secretly praised her carefulness. In the interaction between the two at breakfast, a tacit understanding gradually developed, but Zhang Yun's remained calm, thinking about how to balance marriage and freedom. Chapter 18 The Intersection of Work and Life. Zhang Yun's took Shen Ruolin to visit the research room, and she took notes carefully and observed his every move. The students whispered, It's surprising that the professor's wife is so focused. Shen Ruolin smiled slightly, did not respond, just listened intently. Zhang Yun saw her attitude and nodded secretly in his heart, marriage is not just a formality, she can maintain a balance between life and work. However, he also realized that there might be some unknown pressure and struggle hidden in her heart. Chapter 19 Unexpected Challenges. One day, the experimental data was abnormal, and Zhang Yun's and Shen Ruolin worked overtime until late at night. The dim light reflected her focused face, and her fingers wandered between the data, moving steadily. This data is not right, check again. Zhang Yun's reminded in a low voice. Shen Ruolin nodded, secretly nervous in her heart, for fear of making a mistake. He looked at her and smiled slightly, You're doing well, don't worry. At that moment, the throbbing in her heart was even more obvious, and she felt both awe and subtle dependence. Chapter 20 Mother's Interference Again. The mother suddenly came to the door, holding the post-wedding life plan in her hand, and said in an eager tone, Lilan, your new life will go according to plan. Shen Ruolin lowered her head and smiled, I will try to adapt. Zhang Yun's frowned slightly, but remained silent. He knew that his mother's interference could not be completely stopped, but at least it could give Shen Ruolin a sense of security. The two looked at each other silently, and he secretly thought to himself, how to maintain balance in marriage without letting his mother intervene too much. Chapter 21 Evening by the Lake. On weekend evenings, Zhang Yun's took Shen Ruolin for a walk by the campus lake. The lake surface is shimmering, the breeze is blowing, and the air is cool with water vapor. Shen Ruolin asked softly, Professor, have you never thought about marriage? Zhang Yun smiled slightly, I didn't need it before, and I wasn't interested. Now it's different, I want to give each other a stable life. She nodded, feeling a warmth in her heart, and also felt the security and tenderness behind this marriage. Chapter 22 Psychological Struggle in the Middle of the Night. Late at night, Shen Ruolin lay on the bed, recalling the wedding, life after marriage, and Zhang Yun's eyes and words. She understood that this marriage was arranged, but she couldn't help but gradually feel dependent and curious in her heart. Is he a contract or an emotion for me? She whispered to herself. My Mind flashed with my dreams when I was a graduate student, my mother's control, and the reality of marriage, and I had mixed feelings in my heart. Underscore 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 un. Chapter 23 The Tacit Understanding of the Laboratory. Zhang Yun's was sorting out the information in the laboratory, and Shen Ruolin was assisting. Occasionally rubbing their fingers, both of them were slightly shocked in their hearts. Zhang Yun's whispered, "Focus on work, don't worry about anything else." Shen Ruolin nodded, but her heart throbbed uncontrollably. This marriage gradually blended into real emotions from the form of a contract, and in the interaction between the two, subtle feelings began to sprout. Underscore 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 un. Chapter 24 Family Pressure. One day, my parents once again urged me to make life details in the progress of my marriage. Shen Ruolin still bowed her head and obeyed, while Zhang Yun's responded calmly, "We will make our own arrangements without interfering." They. Mother turned pale with anger, but there was nothing she could do. Shen Ruolin breathed a sigh of relief. She began to understand that Zhang Yun's was not only a rational professor, but also a partner who would protect her. Underscore 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 un. Chapter 25 The Glimmer of Emotion. At night, the two of them were watching the starry sky on the balcony. Shen Ruolin leaned next to Zhang Yun's. Her heart was both stable and throbbing. Zhang Yun said softly, "In this marriage, I will give you an ideal life, and I hope you can gradually find your own rhythm." She looked up at him, her eyes flashing with gratitude and trust. "I will work hard." In the night breeze, they stood shoulder to shoulder, subtle tacit understanding and unspoken emotions quietly sprouting under the quiet night sky. Chapter 26 Night in the Laboratory. Late at night, only Zhang Yun's and Shen Ruolin were left in the laboratory, and the dim light reflected the test tubes and materials on the table. Shen Ruolin wandered between the test tubes with her fingers, focused and steady, and was careful with every step. Zhang Yun stood next to him and reminded in a low voice, "Pay attention to temperature and concentration, this step is very important." She nodded, slightly nervous in her heart, but more of an expectation. Every time he guided, it was like opening a door to the unknown. Under the light, her face was slightly red, and Zhang Yun's gaze inadvertently fell on her, and there was a hint of softness in her heart. After the work, he said lightly, "Well done, you performed better than I thought tonight." Shen Ruolin's heart warmed, she raised her eyes to look at him, and there was a tacit understanding in her eyes. Underscore 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 un. Chapter 27 Early Morning by the Lake. In the early morning, Zhang Yun's took Shen Ruolin for a walk by the campus lake. The lake surface was dyed golden by the morning light, and the breeze blew on the face, carrying the coolness of water vapor. Shen Ruolin asked softly, "Professor, why do you never talk about marriage?" Zhang Yun smiled lightly, "I didn't need it before, and I didn't have any interest. But now, I want to give each other a stable life." She nodded slightly, a trace of warmth rising in her heart. The lake water sparkled, and she looked at her reflection and saw the security and dependence that marriage could bring. Underscore 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 un. Chapter 28 Mother's Interference. Her mother came to visit again, bringing her life plan after the wedding, and her tone was eager. "Lilan, you have to live according to the plan, and the schedule after the wedding cannot be delayed." Shen Ruolin smiled and nodded, and responded gently, "I will try to adapt." Zhang Yun's frowned slightly, but remained silent. He knew that his mother's interference could not be completely stopped, but at least he could give Shen Ruolin a protection. After her mother left, Zhang Yun's whispered to her, "Don't worry, I will help you deal with it." Shen Ruolin's heart swelled with gratitude, and she also felt that marriage was not only a contract, but also a gentle protection. Underscore 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 un. Chapter 29 Psychological Struggle in the Middle of the Night. Late at night, Shen Ruolin lay on the bed, recalling the wedding, life after marriage, and Zhang Yun's sighs and words. She was full of contradictions. This marriage was arranged, but she couldn't help but gradually develop dependence and curiosity in her heart. "Is he a contract or an emotion for me?" she whispered to herself, her mother's control, her dreams, and her real marriage flashing through her mind. The night breeze gently brushed the curtains, and she felt both nervous and subtle throbbing. Chapter 30 The Run-In of Living Together. After marriage, life began to gradually enter daily life. Shen Ruolin learned to arrange housework and assist in laboratory affairs, while Zhang Yun's remained calm. When sorting out the experimental data once, she accidentally knocked over the reagent, and Zhang Yun's reminded in a low voice, "Pay attention, this step is very critical." She was slightly nervous, but quickly stabilized her emotions and completed the operation. Zhang Yun's looked at her focused appearance, and a sense of appreciation rose in his heart. She was not only well-behaved and obedient, but also had the ability to work hard to overcome difficulties. Chapter 31 The Challenges of Graduate Students. A new impatient graduate student in the laboratory had a poor attitude towards Shen Ruolin's guidance. "You are just the professor's wife, why teach us?" Shen Ruolin lowered her head and smiled, her voice gentle, "I just try my best to assist in the research, please focus on your work." Zhang Yun's watched from the side, his eyes slightly cold. "Respect every colleague and focus on work is the most important thing." The student was stunned for a moment, and finally bowed his head silently. Shen Ruolin's heart warmed slightly, and she became more determined to gain a firm foothold in her marriage and career. Chapter 32 Dusk by the Lake. On weekend evenings, the two took a walk by the campus lake, the setting sun reflecting the water and sparkling. Shen Ruolin asked softly, "Professor, what would you do if I didn't obey?" Zhang Yun stopped, looked into her eyes, and his eyes were deep. "Marriage is not oppression, but a choice. I hope you find your rhythm in this marriage." She nodded, her heart warmed, and she felt that behind this marriage was not only arrangement, but also understanding and tolerance. Chapter 33 The Heartbeat of the Night. Late at night in the laboratory, Shen Ruolin sorted out the information. Zhang Yun's came over and reminded softly, "This data needs to be checked again." She nodded, her heart throbbing slightly. Fingers touched inadvertently, and the eyes of the two met briefly, and time seemed to freeze. Zhang Yun's whispered, "You are doing well, don't be nervous." Shen Ruolin's heart throbbed, and for the first time, she felt that in addition to the contract and marriage, there might be a real emotional sprout. Chapter 34 Mother's Persecution Again. The mother came to the door again with a bunch of life planning files, and her tone was eager. "Lilan, you have to live according to the plan, and you can't afford to delay this time." Shen Ruolin still smiled and responded gently, "I will work hard." Zhang Yun said in a deep voice, "We will arrange it ourselves without outside interference." Mother's face changed slightly, and she finally had no choice but to leave. Shen Ruolin breathed a sigh of relief in her heart, felt Zhang Yun's protection, and gradually established trust in marriage. Chapter 35 Subtle Tacit Understanding. At night, the two of them were watching the starry sky on the balcony. Shen Ruolin leaned next to Zhang Yun's, her heart was both stable and throbbing. Zhang Yun's whispered, "In this marriage, I will give you an ideal life, and I hope you will gradually find your own rhythm." Shen Ruolin looked up at him, trust and gratitude flashing in her eyes. "I will work hard." Night breeze blew, they stood side by side, unspoken emotions quietly sprouted, and a subtle tacit understanding gradually solidified under the quiet night sky. Chapter 36 Laboratory in the Middle of the Night. Late at night, only Zhang Yun's and Shen Ruolin were left in the laboratory. The lights were dim, and the test tubes on the table emitted a shimmering light. Shen Ruolin operated carefully, every step was careful, and her fingers touched the test tube, as if she was talking to the unknown world. Zhang Yun stood next to him and reminded in a low voice, "Pay attention to the temperature and proportion, if there is a slight mistake in this step, the whole experiment will be redone." She nodded slightly, nervous in her heart, but also a hint of anticipation. Every time he guided, it was like opening the door to a new world. After the work, Zhang Yun said lightly, "Well done, better than I expected." Shen Ruolin's heart warmed, she raised her eyes to look at him, and the eyes of the two intertwined with a subtle tacit understanding. Underscore 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 on. Chapter 37, Morning by the Lake. In the early morning, the lake surface is dyed golden by the morning light, and the breeze blows on the face. Zhang Yun's and Shen Ruolin walked side by side, and she asked softly, "Professor, why did you never talk about marriage before?" Zhang Yun smiled lightly. It was unnecessary and uninteresting in the past. But now, I want to give each other a stable life. Shen Ruolin nodded slightly, a trace of warmth rose in her heart, and she felt the sense of security and dependence that marriage could bring. The lake shimmered, she looked at the reflection, and also saw the shadow of herself gradually integrating into this life. Underscore 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 on. Chapter 38, Mother's Pressure. The mother came to the door again and brought the living arrangements after the wedding, and said in an eager tone, "Lilan, you have to live according to the plan." Shen Ruolin lowered her head and smiled, "I will try to adapt." Zhang Yun said in a deep voice, "We will arrange it ourselves without outside interference." They. Mother's face changed slightly and she had no choice but to leave. Shen Ruolin breathed a sigh of relief, felt Zhang Yun's protection, and gradually established trust in marriage. Underscore 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 on. Chapter 39, Late Night Heartbeat. Late at night, there were only two people left in the laboratory. Shen Ruolin sorted out the information, and touched the edge of the file with her fingers. Zhang Yun's approached and reminded in a low voice, "This part of the data needs to be checked again." They. Fingers of the two touched inadvertently, and Shen Ruolin's heartbeat accelerated slightly. Zhang Yun's eyes were indifferent, and his tone was calm, "You are doing well, you don't have to be nervous." Shen Ruolin felt a throbbing in her heart, and for the first time realized that there may be true emotions hidden in addition to the contract in marriage. Underscore 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 on. Chapter 40, The Challenges of the Laboratory. The new students in the laboratory were impatient and disdainful of Shen Ruolin's guidance. "You are just the professor's wife, why should you teach us?" Shen Ruolin lowered her head slightly and said softly, "I'm just assisting in research, please focus on your work." Zhang Yun's was beside him, his eyes were cold. "Respect every colleague and focus on work is the most important thing." They. Student was stunned for a moment, and finally lowered her head. Shen Ruolin's heart was slightly warm, and she strengthened her confidence in marriage and career. Underscore 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 on. Chapter 41, Dusk by the Lake. On a weekend evening, the two took a walk by the lake, and the setting sun reflected on the water. Shen Ruolin asked in a low voice, "Professor, what will you do if I don't obey?" Zhang Yun stopped, his eyes deep. "Marriage is not oppression, but a choice. I hope you find your own rhythm." Shen Ruolin nodded, her heart warmed, and she felt the understanding and tolerance behind marriage. Underscore 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 on. Chapter 42, The Subtlety of the Night. Late at night, Shen Ruolin sorted out the information, and Zhang Yun's came over and reminded in a low voice, "This data needs to be checked again." They. Two of them rubbed their fingers occasionally, and their hearts throbbed slightly. Zhang Yun's whispered, "You are doing well." Shen Ruolin's heart throbbed, and for the first time, she felt the germination of true emotions outside the marriage contract. Underscore 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 on. Chapter 43, The Family's Pressure Again. The mother came to the door again with a life planning file. "Lilan, you have to live according to the plan." Shen Ruolin still smiled, "I will work hard." Zhang Yun's responded in a deep voice, "We will arrange it ourselves and do not interfere." They. Mother finally had no choice but to leave. Shen Ruolin felt Zhang Yun's protection, and gradually established trust in marriage. Underscore 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 on. Chapter 44, The Accumulation of Tacit Understanding. At night, the two of them were watching the starry sky on the balcony. Shen Ruolin leaned next to Zhang Yun's, her heart stable and throbbing. Zhang Yun's whispered, "In marriage, I hope you will gradually find your own rhythm." Shen Ruolin looked up at him, trust and gratitude flashing in her eyes. "I will work hard." They. Night wind blows gently, they stand shoulder to shoulder, and unspoken emotions quietly sprout. Underscore 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 un. Chapter 45 The First Appearance of Emotions. The next day, Zhang Yun's and Shen Ruolin worked in the research room, occasionally rubbing their fingers. Shen Ruolin's heart throbbed, but she remained focused. Zhang Yun's nodded slightly, secretly admiring her calmness and concentration in his heart. This marriage gradually integrated into real emotions from the contract, and the tacit understanding between them slowly accumulated in daily life. Chapter 46 The Choice of Marriage. Huang Lian stood in front of the mirror, holding the wedding invitation in her hand. Her heart was up and down. The mother was full of anticipation, but she felt stressed. Professor Shen walked to her side and said in a steady tone, "Lian, this is your choice, you don't have to be influenced by the outside world." She lowered her head and her thoughts returned to her past research dreams, her mother's control, and the subtle emotions between herself and her professor. Deep down, she understood that this marriage was not only to escape her mother's oppression, but also to make her own choice. Finally, she raised her head with a firm look in her eyes. "I think, I'm willing to go on, but in my own way." Underscore 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 un. Chapter 47 On the Eve of the Wedding. On the eve of the wedding, Huang Lian and Professor Shen took a walk together by the lake on the campus of Kyoto University. The sunset reflects the lake, the breeze carries moisture, and the two walk side by side, creating a subtle atmosphere. She whispered, "Professor, I have always been worried that I am not worthy of you, and I am also worried about being swayed by my mother." Professor Shen stopped, held her hand, and his eyes were deep. "Lian, marriage is not a compromise, but a choice. I am willing to explore the future with you, in good times and bad." Huang Lian felt a warmth in her chest, and the fear in her heart gradually dissipated. Underscore 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 un. Chapter 48 The Dawn of the Wedding. On the wedding day, the sun shone on the small square on the campus, and students gathered with relatives and friends. Huang Lian was wearing a simple and elegant dress, Professor Shen was in a straight suit, and the two stood under the flower arch. Tears flashed in my mother's eyes, and my sister smiled and nodded. When the pastor asks, "Are you willing to spend your life hand in hand with the other person?" Huang Lian took a deep breath and replied without hesitation, "I do." Professor Shen responded softly, "I do." They. Surrounding applause was thunderous, and the lake reflected their smiles, like the light of a new life, illuminating the road ahead. Underscore 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 un. Chapter 49 The Run-in of Life. After marriage, the two returned to campus life, and Huang Lian began to be in charge of projects independently in the laboratory, with Professor Shen providing support. In life, she gradually regained her lost sense of autonomy, and academics and marriage were no longer conflicts, but complements. The students began to respect her, the experiment went smoothly, and the two occasionally discussed problems in the laboratory with tacit understanding and tenderness in their eyes. Huang Lian knew in her heart that this marriage was her own choice and her true belonging. Underscore 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 un. Chapter 50 The Promise of the Future. A few years later, the campus of Kyoto University was still busy, and Huang Lian and Professor Shen stood hand in hand by the lake. The shadows of the sycamore trees were fluttering, the lake was shimmering, and they looked back on their past difficulties and struggles, their hearts full of gratitude. Huang Lian smiled and said, "I thought marriage was just an escape, but I didn't expect that it also made me find myself again." Professor Shen held her hand and said in a deep tone, "Every step we have taken together is a choice and a promise. In the future, we still have many unknowns, but I am willing to face them with you." The lake reflected the figures of the two of them, and the light and shadow intertwined, just like the years they had gone through, they were confused and struggled, and finally found their own direction. In the wind, they stood side by side and silently made a promise in their hearts, no matter the wind or rain, they would spend their lives together.